So Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined once again by my old friend Kalle Sauerland. How you doing?
How are you, Dan? You well?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
You're looking very chilled there, sitting back, kicking back. It's a lockdown kickback interview.
Well, I am on furlough, so...
Yeah, well,
No, I'm
we're
just
all on
kidding. I'm just
furlough.
kidding.
We're
I'm
all
not
on
really.
furlough.
Um,
I wish I was on furlough.
well, you've had some big news this week. There might not be many events going on at the moment. We hope that changes soon. But you guys have signed Chris Eubank Jr. A bit of a marquee signing has captured the imagination of the public.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd expect it to make a spread at the best of times, but it seems at the worst of times it's like become the news of the week, and it keeps on going. And we announced it Sunday, and here we are Tuesday talking about it still. That doesn't happen often in the world of sports or boxing. But Junior's, he's one of them characters. Forget the boxing side. We'll come to the boxing side, but as a character, the word Eubank is synonymous through the first generation, let's call it, of boxing, of splitting the opinion. It's definitely not, it's definitely not that everyone loves them. It's a complete marmite, and it was the same with Senior. I remember growing up, and actually I wouldn't say I was a Senior fan. I was a fan of the whole thing at the time, and all those Saturday night fights. I think a lot of fans in my age category of 21, around that. On the other, let's call it just on the other side of 40, will remember those years of watching it on a Saturday night on ITV and whatever channel else it was on. Then those names, the Eubanks, the Bens, the Collins, the Watsons, of course, those great fights, and but it was about characters as well. And Junior is an absolute character. Whether you love him, whether you hate him, you just got to look at his following. Whatever he does, I'm not just talking about social media following, I'm talking about the events and everything. It always captures everyone's attention and imagination. And he's had a tough year last year. COVID saw that he didn't get into a ring. COVID was a very tough year for a lot of boxers, but he's one that really sticks out from the UK names. Don't forget, for me, he is a top 5 UK asset, if you want to look at it from a business sense. And we're raring to go. I think the fact it's made such a splash on the announcement is great, but I don't look too much at that. I look at what we're doing with him, and we have a storyline to tell that we will tell this year. He needs activity. We need to get those engines firing straight away. There's so many big fights. I've heard us mention, him mention, but also online discussed already, and different polls going up. You can tell it's lockdown because it really has been the talking point of the week so far in boxing. So I'm happy when there's a few more announcements and we can go off and quietly do our job. But for the moment, we're lapping it up, and I think there's so many great fights out there at that weight. And when you look at that weight, Junior's a big part of that weight now. So his last big fight was James DeGale. In terms of big fight, it was his last fight in the UK, which is 23 months ago, and it's time to fire up the engine. So we'll be out as quick as we can. Definitely in the next 2-3 months, and then we'll move on from there. It's going to be a big year.
We spoke to your brother Nisa yesterday. He said that the relationship that you built with Eubank Jr. during the World Boxing Super Series was instrumental in bringing him to Team Sauerland. Just tell us why now is the right time to have this formal arrangement between you.
Well, actually, our history goes back. So, and I think it was one of my brother's shows. He boxed on a Team Sauerland show in Denmark. I forgot about it almost years and years ago. I think 2012 we boxed on a Team Sauerland show. I can't even remember how it came about, but I've known Senior for many years as well. Have much respect, much time for him. You know, he's a real character, but he also, you know, he has his way of putting things, but it's always he does. There's a method behind the way he says it. When he talks about the Warriors code and things, actually, if you break it down, it's damn interesting. If you like boxing, listen to him, because he has been there and done it. And you know, throughout the time of the WBSS, watched him, but I wouldn't say I'd have to go against what my brother's saying there a little bit, because it's ultimately boxing is a business, and you know, we came up with a game plan. We had a chat with Senior actually last summer. Was more of a lunch and a general catch up, and then you know. I just sort of mentioned, you know, if you ever want to come back and do your thing in Europe, I said, we're here, you know, and we always before WBSS even, we always had a very good relationship, and I think it's a mutual feeling of trust there, but it's also we have a mutual understanding on what we want to do, and I think what people will be surprised about. And they shouldn't be, is that when they say, "Oh, he hasn't fought this one, he hasn't fought that one," well, so, hold on, let's just stop. Let's look actually at the facts, right? We can all say, "Oh, didn't fight Golovkin. Brook fought Golovkin at the time. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. He walked out on this promoter, this promoter." But let's look at the facts. He's fought Billy Joe Saunders in a great fight, in a cracking fight, which I'm sure we'll see a part 2 of. He fought against Yildirim, who is now the mandatory for Canelo, in Yildirim's backyard in Turkish Germany, in a welcome to hell Galatasaray atmosphere. Took him out clean. Went on to fight George, which was a big learning fight, I think, for him. Huge stage fight. He fought Arthur Abraham, won every round. He fought James DeGale, beat him handily. He fought Korobov, okay, unfortunate ending, but won. And you know what? He entered the Super Series, and without saying too much about the way that deal was done, all they wanted was to win that. And the deal was actually structured at the time in a way where it was very much based on winning. A lot of people have done differently. So the belief in themselves isn't some PR gag. It isn't that. It's an absolute belief in what he can do. And I think he showed in the DeGale fight. Yes, it was towards the end of what ended up being the end of DeGale's career, but that wasn't that much after DeGale had fought some absolute fight of the year classics. Yeah, so you know it was a fantastic performance. I've always felt that his weight is middleweight. Watching his fights, you know, I know there was talk about him being able to fight all the way up. You know, that I think you have to put to the side. I think the middleweight is what he wants to focus on now. It's what our common plan is to focus on the middleweights. And you know, there's not an opponent at middleweight which he would back down from. So that I know, without breaking any contractual confidentiality, that's the way the deal's set up. We're not here to make, you know, small fights. Yes, he needs action. He might need to get back in the ring, get some of that rust off. But this year he needs those big fights, and that's what we're going to do.
Well, he said similar last night. He said if you guys can deliver the names you've talked about, he'll deliver the performances to match the names.
Yeah, and Dan, once again, a lot of people go on, you know, his personality, his Instagram, and he's, you know, hanging out with, like I said before, Dan Bilzerian on a New Year's Eve. I mean, you know, I can see why he's chosen me as a promoter. But you know,
you said it.
You know, he's got a fantastic way of portraying himself, whether you like it or whether you don't. But he's also one of the hardest working fighters in a gym you'll see. And yes, in the past, I do believe some of that hard work has been directed a little bit wrongly. I think he's, by all accounts, and once again, I'm not in the gym with him, by all accounts, they have a cracking relationship, him and Roy Jones. And that's something that I think can only add to him. I mean, Roy Jones is, without any shadow of a doubt, in everyone's, top 20 of all time boxers. I'm talking top 20 is obviously a big number, 20, but it's, in the last 20 years, he's certainly in everyone's top 10 or top 5. So he's a great influence, I think, on Junior. But also, I think he's learned, and I think he learned a lot of that after the Groves fight, was it's not just about working hard, it's about how you work. And you saw the performance against DeGale, efficient, ruthless, it was everything that was required of him. If you look at, go and analyse the Billy Joe fight, started far too late, tactically wasn't there, but physically it was a very evenly matched fight. It was a great fight. No one would not. I think every boxing fan in the country would like to see that fight again. But he has learned himself and improved himself. He could have made his way maybe a bit easier at certain times, but hey, sometimes you have to go the hard way through it. And I believe he can take over at middleweight.
And something we discussed with your brother yesterday, how will it work promotionally? Do you see yourself mainly doing co-promotions over here in the UK, or will you be promoting on your own?
I think if you look at any big event in world boxing today, there's no promotions. There's only co-promotions. Name me one. The last Joshua fight was a co-promotion. The Joshua fight before that was a co-promotion. Look at the last Fury fight, it's co-promotion. They're all, if you don't work with other promoters, it's sometimes it's about taking their platform because they have an exclusive. Sometimes it's because it's the other fighter. Sometimes you need to get the fighter over. It's always a different way of putting the event together. So, yeah, of course. And by the way, I think out of all promoters on the planet, we've worked together more with more promoters than anyone else. So I think that's something, we did it with George. We worked with, in George's career, George Groves' career, we worked with Al Heyman, we worked with Eddie Hearn. I can't remember now off the top of my head who else, but we went for, so you have to work together to make big fights. And that's ultimately what it takes to get the big fights made. And you're not going to find much ego here.
And what about from a broadcaster perspective? Is it a case of whoever he fights, it will be on their platform? Or have you guys got a deal lined up either for Sauerland as a whole or for Eubank specifically?
You're talking UK, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look, he's come over off a stint, obviously, in the United States. So in the UK, he's a free agent. Let's call him a bachelor. I'd say he's the most eligible bachelor in town. So, I think that's a case of what fight it is. Is that fight contracted to another network? Hey, even easy for us. Not a problem. But it's, like I said before, one of the top 5 boxing assets in the UK, in terms of interest around a fighter. There's no athlete in the UK, boxing athlete, which doesn't perform without the B-side, doesn't do the numbers without the B-side. You need to get both together. You need that best versus the best. Yeah. And, that's something that he wants. He does, like I said, you need to get that ring rust off, but that's a fight, maybe. Yeah. Maybe there's another way of approaching it, but I assume we'll get him out quick, 10 rounder, something like that. Get him out and shake that rust off. It has been 13, 14 months since his last fight, but I would say there's maybe even potentially other ways of dealing with that. We'll see. We'll discuss that within the team, but he needs to be out quick and fast. And there's there's countless number of fights that I see out there for him, both in the UK and abroad. But the focus, yeah, don't never say never, but the focus will be on the UK, of course. You know, it's like I said, you know, you've got the big two here, yeah. You've got your Fury and your Joshua, and then you know there's a group of 3-4 others, and I include I definitely include Eubank Jr as one of those names.
What's your top 3, say, hit list in terms of Eubank Jr opponents? And I'm talking about after the rush shedding, if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can't look past Triple G, can you? You know, if you're a boxing fan and you're going to put weight classes with legacies over the last 10 years, the first name, when I say middleweight to you, Dan, or to any of the listeners, the first name, unless you've been asleep for 9 of the 10 years, is going to be Golovkin. To make, Golovkin is the fight to make. It's a fight that Gennady himself called out for to fight. It's a fight that, you know, he said he wants. So, you know, that's one. Look at Murata, big fight, very big fight, very interesting fight. Got obviously a Charlo as well. That didn't happen despite them being together in the same stable. So maybe that's for reasons I don't know, a trickier fight to make. But Charlo's a great champ as well. And then you've got to look at the UK ones, you know, because ultimately the UK versus UK is always a special one to be involved in, to promote, and I think for Junior to fight in. And then, you know, there's a lot of different ones you can look at. The obvious one is Billy Joe, but which is you know, fantastic for Billy Joe. He's deserves that fight. But that's only one fight, and we'll see what happens in that fight. And that fight could also be something for later in the year. The other one, I think there's some fights to be made around the weight. So that I think is fascinating. I've seen he struggled at that weight. We've seen him do good against Golovkin. Yes, it was a tough fight, but yeah, he certainly didn't get run over by Golovkin, and that was a Golovkin who was absolutely in his prime. I think that's just an interesting fight to make. I think you create a lot of hype around it. I think Liam Williams, once again, he's got the mandatory shot, I believe, against Andrade. Andrade, another one. I mean, I fancy Williams in that fight. A great fighter as well. So, you know, I said also Liam Smith. You know, there's lots of good fights out there. You know, you just got to be creative. You know, and you know, as long as the other side wants it, it's going to be very easy to do business with us. You know, always has been. You know, and you know, I'd like to think we've got a great track record with UK fighters. If I look back over the years, you know, whether it's been directly with them, like, I don't know, with David Hay, you know, Derek Chisora, David Price, George Rose, which was a fantastic up and down ride roller coaster, and which I don't want to go through that roller coaster again, but it was one that I'll be telling my grandkids about. Very, very close to us. And then you've got, you know, but then also indirectly, you mustn't forget, I've promoted quite a few of Carl Froch's fights, you know, as co-promoter or as in a series with. I've had more than my fair share of promoting big time boxing in the UK, and I'm looking forward to seeing Team Sauerland doing the business with Junior on this.
And looking at Triple G as an example, he's contracted to the Zone, of course, globally. Eubank Jr is a UK fighter, but has no UK broadcaster contractually. So if that comes off, presumably we'd be able to watch it in the UK on the Zone.
Presumably, yes. Presumably, yes. No, I mean, at the end of the day, the nice thing is, not only are we the nicest fellas on the planet to work with, so I had to just give myself a cheesy grin there, but I had to get the promoter grin out. But set that aside, set my pretty blue eyes aside. I'm telling you, we are at the advantage of we are free with him. Like I said, the most eligible bachelor in town. So that's a fantastic position to be in. Not only as for Junior as a fighter, but it opens up so many doors that might otherwise be shut.
And the fact that you already work with a number of different broadcasters and promoters must be even better for Junior's progress.
Listen, we've done business with every promoter on the planet, every major promoter on the planet, and there's not a single major promoter on the planet that I know that I wouldn't take their call or they wouldn't take my call. You know, in fact, since Sunday, we've had discussions with 3 different continents. I'll put it that way. 3 different major promoters on 3 different continents. So lots of very interesting discussions. There's still discussions. It's obviously very fresh off the press, and I just think we'll have a very exciting year.
Europe, America, Asia, presumably.
No idea. I'm terrible with geography. Terrible. I was told that before this to say that.
I was going to say, you brought continents into the equation, haven't you?
I am useless at geography.
I'm not much.
Europe. Where's Europe?
Yeah. Well, that's a whole different debate.
Never heard of it.
We're not in Europe anymore.
We're non-European.
Yeah. So just before I let you go, one final question, something we're asking a lot of people at the moment. Outside of the fighters you work with personally, what fight would you most like to see in 2021?
Listen, it's a public demand. It's got to be Fury Joshua. But I'm going to throw in there from a boxing point of view, and I think a massive fight whenever you unify a division. It's got to be Taylor Ramirez. You know, I think Josh cleaning up the division, if he beats Ramirez, is a massive achievement for him, for Scotland. Very close with Josh. Great guy, great fighter, and I think that would really cap off a great couple of years. And he's still got a few years left in the tank as well, so it's very exciting.
Who are you picking in those 2 mega fights?
I'm picking Fury and Taylor, without blinking my eye.
Yeah, it's good. You didn't sit on the fence at all. Well done.
No sitting on the fence for me.
I agree as well. I'm picking Fury and Taylor as well. But yeah, no, it's good.
Yeah, and it'd be great for boxing to get them made. You know, get them made. I'm not a fan of. I've got to say, I'm not a fan of these 2 fight arrangements. You know, I think they're. Yeah, I mean, I love an option. I've used options all my career, but to do 2 set fights is a tricky one. You know, you saw it after the Wilder fight. Who wanted to see at the time? I think Fury Wilder down the road again. Let him have a couple of fights and build himself up again. Yeah, we can watch that again. 100% on the back of the first fight. You know, he's in a way earned it off the first fight. But the second fight was that clear. You don't want to watch it straight again. No. So what happens either way on the Fury Joshua fight? What happens either way if it goes either way? You know, I've made my prediction, but either way, yeah. You know, if someone clears someone out and around, actually clearing someone out and around.
Yeah, well, that's all right. Yeah,
I got hit cold. Cool.
But if it's like Fury Wilder,
but even worse, if it's 12-0 and he's done a Klitschko sort of, when Fury fought Klitschko, you didn't really want to see that rematch. You know, didn't really want to see it. You know, you knew that Fury had done everything to ruin Klitschko that night, and I don't think you'd want to see that fight again. Not at least in the immediate future, you know. So yeah, it is. You know, I don't know, but sometimes you need to do things to get business made. And look, if we have to take that to get the one fight, why not?
Great stuff. Well, really, really appreciate your time. Great to give us some news to cover during this fallow period. And I wish you and the most eligible bachelor in all of boxing the best for the future.
Thanks a lot, Dan. And we'll speak soon, brother.
Cheers, mate. Take care. See you soon.